where aid is distributed in Gaza, has used members of a US biker gang with a history of hostility to Islam.
A biker gang with anti-Muslim tattoos, armed contractors at food distribution sites, over 1,000 civilians dead while seeking aid. This isn't fiction. In 2025, members of the Infidels motorcycle club were hired to provide security at aid sites in Gaza. The result? A humanitarian disaster that sparked international outrage and exposed the dangerous intersection of private military contracting, ideological extremism, and conflict zones. In May 2025, something unprecedented happened in Gaza. After Israel imposed a complete blockade cutting off all humanitarian aid for over 2 months, a new organization emerged to fill the void: the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, backed by both the United States and Israeli governments, began operating food distribution sites across southern Gaza. But the security contractors hired to protect these sites came from an unexpected and controversial source. A BBC investigation revealed that at least 10 members of the Infidels motorcycle club were working in Gaza for UG Solutions, a private military contractor providing security at Gaza Humanitarian Foundation sites. 7 of these gang members held senior positions overseeing the aid distribution operations. The Infidels Motorcycle Club isn't your typical veteran organization. Founded in 2006 by U.S.-Iraq war veterans, the group views themselves as modern crusaders, emulating medieval Christians who fought Muslims for control of Jerusalem. Their symbolism tells the story of their ideology. The gang uses crusader-related symbols, including the number 1095, referring to the year Pope Urban II announced the First Crusade. The Infidels MC's Facebook page contains anti-Islamic content, and archived web pages show the group hosted a pig roast in 2015 in Colorado Springs, with invitations to attend in defiance of the Islamic holiday of Ramadan. The group's mission statement explicitly states they reject what they call the radical jihadist movement and support the fight against Islamic extremism. At the center of this controversy stands Johnny Taz Mulford. Mulford served in the Marine Corps from 1982 to 1985, and then in the Army from 1987 to 2007, seeing multiple deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan. He's a member of the Infidels MC Florida chapter and became the country team leader for UG Solutions contract in Gaza. Mulford's background raises serious questions. Military documents show he was debarred in June 2005 after receiving non-judicial punishment for conspiracy to commit bribery, larceny, and making false official statements, allegedly participating in a scheme to receive a kickback from a contractor who provided skydiving training to Fort Bragg soldiers. His debarment was terminated in 2007, shortly before his retirement at the rank of Master Sergeant. His physical appearance reflects his ideology. Mulford has multiple tattoos, including an American flag in flames overlain by a Templar symbol on his right forearm, another Templar shield on his left bicep, and a Jerusalem cross on his right forearm. He has 1095 tattooed across his chest. In May 2025, just weeks before deploying to Gaza, Mulford used his Facebook network for recruitment. He posted asking for anyone with a combat arms military operational specialty who can still shoot, move, and communicate to contact him, noting this would be tested and they needed to be ready to leave within 12 hours. The recruitment strategy worked. A former contractor estimated that at least 40 of UG Solutions' approximately 320 Gaza employees were recruited from the Infidels MC. The financial incentive was substantial. Documents show UG Solutions paid each contractor $980 per day, including expenses, rising to $1,580 per day for team leaders at GHF's distribution sites. The BBC's investigation uncovered the full extent of Infidels MC infiltration through an accidental email revelation. When journalists contacted Mulford for comment, he used reply all instead of regular reply, inadvertently exposing the identities and email addresses of 10 other Infidels MC members working in Gaza. This single mistake pulled back the curtain on what had been a carefully concealed network. Among the identified members were key gang leadership, Larry J. Rod Jarrett, publicly named as the Infidels MC Vice President, was in charge of UG Solutions Logistics in Gaza. Bill St. Saib, the gang's national treasurer, led the security team for one of GHF's 4 distribution sites. Richard A. Tracker Lofton, a founding member of the gang, served as a team leader at another distribution site. These weren't low-level recruits. They were the core leadership of an organization built on anti-Islamic ideology. But how did these individuals pass background checks? How did a private military contractor justify hiring members of a group that openly celebrates the Crusades? The answers reveal a disturbing gap in oversight and accountability in the private military contracting industry. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation itself represents a controversial privatization of humanitarian aid. The organization was established in February 2025, backed by the Israeli and American governments, with the stated purpose of distributing humanitarian aid amid the ongoing famine and humanitarian crisis resulting from the Israeli blockade of the Gaza Strip. The operation was designed to bypass the United Nations as the main supplier of aid in Gaza. The foundation hired U.S. private security firms, including North Carolina-based UG Solutions, managed by former U.S. Special Forces soldier Jamison Gavoni, and Safe Reach Solutions, led by former CIA paramilitary chief Philip F. Riley. Philip Riley's background is extensive. He was the CIA's Afghanistan station chief around 2008 to 2009 and chief of operations of the agency's Counterterrorism Mission Center, which led the controversial drone strike program during the global war on terror. He previously served as senior vice president of special activities of the private military contractor Constellis, the owner of the company formerly known as Blackwater. The operational reality of these distribution sites painted a grim picture. Each of the 4 open-air distribution sites has a rectangular layout enclosed by earthen berms, with 4 guard towers positioned at the corners, and civilian access controlled through narrow entry and exit points guided by chutes or barriers. The sites are surrounded by military infrastructure, including outposts, equipment, and vehicles, some positioned along civilian access routes. What happened at these sites shocked the international community. The killings began almost immediately after operations started on May 27, 2025. Since May 27, 2025, more than 2,600 Palestinian civilians seeking aid have been killed in the Gaza Strip when being fired upon by the Israel Defense Forces, armed gangs, and contractors hired by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. The death toll mounted with horrifying consistency. As of July 13, 2025, the UN Human Rights Office recorded 875 people killed while trying to get food, with 674 of them killed in the vicinity of GHF sites. By late July, over 1,000 Palestinians had been killed by Israeli forces while trying to get food, mostly near aid sites run by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. The United Nations documented the scale of the tragedy. At least 859 people were killed around GHF sites from the beginning of operations in late May through July 31, 2025. The UN stated that most of the killings appeared to have been carried out by Israeli security forces. Specific incidents revealed the brutality. On June 17th, Israeli troops killed 59 and injured 221 others, with witnesses reporting that Israeli soldiers, tanks, and drones fired onto civilians, and at least 2 Israeli shells landed in the middle of the crowd, described as a massacre, and the deadliest killing at aid distribution centers. The danger wasn't limited to Israeli forces. Former contractors came forward with disturbing accounts. 2 U.S. contractors spoke to the Associated Press anonymously, stating they were coming forward because they were disturbed by what they considered dangerous and irresponsible practices. They said the security staff hired were often unqualified, unvetted, heavily armed, and seemed to have an open license to do whatever they wished. The conditions at the sites created what officials called death traps. UNRWA head Filippo Lazzarini stated that the aid distribution system was an abomination that humiliates and degrades desperate people, and a death trap costing more lives than it saves. The humanitarian impact extended beyond immediate deaths. The Gaza Health Ministry said 80 children died from starvation since the beginning of the war, while 21 adults died since just days before the report. A UN spokesperson noted that babies were dying from the effects of severe acute malnutrition, with 6,000 trucks containing food, medicine, and supplies waiting in Egypt and Jordan, just a 3-hour drive from Gaza. The international response was swift and unified. UN experts expressed grave concern, stating that the GHF is an utterly disturbing example of how humanitarian relief can be exploited for covert military and geopolitical agendas in serious breach of international law. On July 1st, 2025, 171 NGOs including Save the Children, Oxfam, Doctors Without Borders, Amnesty International, and the Norwegian Refugee Council published a joint declaration calling for the GHF food aid distribution scheme to be dismantled, citing concerns that it puts civilians at risk of injury and death. Human Rights Watch weighed in with serious legal assessments. The organization stated that Israeli forces at GHF sites routinely opened fire on starving Palestinian civilians in acts that amount to serious violations of international law and war crimes. U.S. lawmakers also expressed outrage. Senator Pete Welch and Representative Sean Casten said in statements they were outraged that a contractor for the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation employed members of the Infidels motorcycle club. Representative Casten called the Infidels an Islamophobic hate group and stated that the United States must immediately halt all funding to the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Muslim civil rights organizations condemned the arrangement in the strongest terms. Edward Ahmad Mitchell, Deputy Director of the Council on American Islamic Relations, stated, "Putting the Infidels Biker Club in charge of delivering humanitarian aid in Gaza is like putting the KKK in charge of delivering humanitarian aid in Sudan. It makes no sense whatsoever." Mitchell further explained, "When you see anti-Muslim bigots today celebrating 1095, celebrating the Crusades, they are celebrating the wholesale massacre of Muslims, the erasure of Muslims and Jews from the holy city of Jerusalem." Former contractors also spoke out about the symbolism. Anthony Aguilar, a former Green Beret and UG Solutions contractor who became a whistleblower, asked, "If I went into Israel with a Nazi swastika on my arm and said, 'Heil Hitler,' what would people think of me?" The companies involved defended their hiring practices. UG Solutions stated it conducts comprehensive background checks and only deploys vetted individuals, adding that it does not screen people out for personal hobbies or affiliations unrelated to job performance. UG Solutions described Johnny Mulford as a trusted and respected figure with more than 30 years of experience supporting American and Allied forces, stating, "We stand by his reputation, record, and his contributions to the success of complex missions." The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation issued its own statement. GHF said it has a zero-tolerance policy for any hateful, discriminatory biases or conduct. In a later statement, GHF said, "Mr. Mulford has not been involved with GHF since August, and we are actively reviewing additional allegations. The controversy exposed broader issues about the privatization of humanitarian aid in conflict zones. The operation's origins reveal careful planning." According to the New York Times, the idea of an Israeli-backed private food distribution program was discussed in December 2023, and throughout 2024, Israeli officials worked with private American security contractors to develop the plan. The broader casualty figures paint a devastating picture. Over the past 23 months of conflict, Israeli forces killed nearly 3,000 people attempting to get aid in the Gaza Strip and wounded almost 20,000 others. The new humanitarians database shows nearly 200 attacks, with a sharp uptick since the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation began operations on May 27th. Legal experts provided stark assessments. Adil Haqi, an international law professor at Rutgers University, stated, "These are not isolated incidents. They're not just similar incidents. They are a pattern and reflect policy and an acceptance on the part of the state that this should continue indefinitely." The controversy also revealed how the companies managed public relations during the crisis. UG Solutions hired the crisis communications firm 7letter, whose leadership includes former Biden and Obama administration spokespersons, as criticism mounted. This move highlighted how deeply connected these private military contractors were to political power structures, raising questions about accountability and transparency. The hiring of Infidels MC members for Gaza operations represents more than just a personnel decision. It symbolizes the dangerous convergence of ideological extremism, private military contracting, and humanitarian operations in active conflict zones. The presence of individuals openly hostile to Islam, marked with crusader symbols, overseeing aid distribution to a desperate Muslim population, created conditions that international organizations warned were fundamentally incompatible with humanitarian principles. The death toll speaks for itself. Over 1,000 civilians killed while seeking food, thousands more wounded, children dying of starvation while aid trucks sat miles away. The system designed to deliver aid became, in the words of UN officials, a death trap. This controversy raises fundamental questions about the future of humanitarian operations. When governments bypass established international organizations like the UN in favor of private contractors, when security firms don't screen for ideological biases against the populations they are meant to serve, and when profit motives intersect with life-saving aid delivery, the results can be catastrophic. The Infidels MC controversy in Gaza serves as a stark warning. Humanitarian aid must remain impartial, neutral, and independent. The mixing of military objectives, private profit, and ideological agendas with humanitarian operations violated every principle that makes aid delivery effective and safe. The victims were the most vulnerable, desperate civilians seeking only to feed their families, caught between armed forces, private contractors, and the machinery of conflict. As international pressure mounted, investigations continued, and legal questions about war crimes were raised, the fundamental lesson remained clear. Privatizing humanitarian aid in conflict zones, especially when contractors harbor ideological hostility toward the populations they serve, is a recipe for disaster. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation experiment demonstrated not innovation in aid delivery, but the devastating consequences when humanitarian principles are abandoned in favor of political and military objectives.